What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we are looking at captaincy options for game week 20. And I know on the surface it probably looks quite obvious who most people are going to go for, but I do think there's one other matchup in particular we're probably overlooking quite a bit, and then we're going to take a look at all the other matches as well, just to see if there's any other options that we should be looking at going into game week 20. So if you are enjoying these captaincy videos, please do keep giving them a like, hit subscribe if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Okay, so let's talk about the obvious match first, and I say obvious because I think Bruno Fernandes is probably going to be the most captain player this week. You've probably heard of effective ownership before, at least I've mentioned it. You might see EO on Twitter. That's essentially the percentage of people that own a player plus the percentage of people that captain them, and usually it's looked at for kind of, rather than overall, because obviously you get some teams that just aren't being managed anymore, right? People have just given up with the game. They usually look at like top 10k, top 100k or something like that. So if 100% of managers in the top 10k own Fernandes and then 100% of them captained him, then he'd have 200% effective ownership, right? So as soon as it gets past 100, you kind of need that player to blank if you're not captaining them, or you know, to go mad if you have captained them. But we won't get into that too much. Basically, Bruno Fernandes is going to be captained a lot, especially with the Kevin De Bruyne injury. The interesting thing is, when I was putting this video together, obviously I always look at the defensive numbers, and they have got better as the season's gone on for Sheffield United, right? When I was looking earlier on in the season, maybe after like 9, 10, 11 game weeks, they were right up there as one of the worst defences, along with West Brom, Leeds. But they have got better. So you can see 1.44 expected goals conceded for the season. That's not great, but it's not far off. You know, recently I've looked at teams like Man United and Wolves have been like around the 1.3 mark. I haven't double checked since then, but Sheffield United not that far off. It's still not great to be conceding that much per game, but as you can see, last 6 it's come down to 1.13. Last 4 it's come down to 0.8. Now, as always, we need a bit of context, right? They've played every single team so far this year because they've played 19 matches, so 1.44, not great. They have improved, but if you look at the teams they've played, last 4, Spurs, Newcastle, Palace, Burnley, right? Okay, Spurs put 3 past them, fair enough. You'd expect that. Man United could do the same. The other teams, Newcastle, Palace, Burnley, all really poor attacks. And even before that, Everton at home, obviously Everton had quite a few injuries recently to like Luka Dean, Rodriguez, etc. I don't know if they played in that game. I don't think they did. And Brighton away as well, who haven't scored a huge amount of goals, although their attack is actually quite good. So they have improved, but also the teams they've played have been much easier recently. So I don't know how much to read into that. I still think Man United are probably going to put a few goals past them. We've actually got quite a good record against Sheffield United in terms of scoring goals. Like even in the reverse fixture earlier this season, we did fine against them. Rashford in particular was decent. My only kind of, it's a slight concern, like it's the smallest concerns. You look at the numbers, right? I'm not kind of tracking and writing it down, but every time I fill in the numbers for kind of shots in the box, chances created, Bruno Fernandes over the last few weeks is coming down every single time I talk about him in the captaincy video in terms of shots in the box. I think there's a few reasons for that. One, I think Paul Pogba is, I don't think he's not hampering him from an overall kind of Man United perspective, but from an FPL point of view, I've said this a few times now, there's not necessarily as much for Fernandes to go and do, right? In fact, I think it's probably a bit harsh not to have Pogba on this list, because I think he's had 8 shots in the box over his last 4 matches. So because he gets forward, Fernandes doesn't need to necessarily get as forward as much. So I do think we're maybe seeing a small decline in Fernandes' numbers, which is still pretty good. Like if you look at the expected goal involvement, he's still quite high. He's only behind Cavani, but most of that is going to be made up from assists. So for me, like, I was going to captain De Bruyne in this game week, but obviously because of his injury, it does bring Fernandes to the front. I do think De Bruyne would have been a better option than Fernandes. It would have been interesting to see how the captaincy played out, but it's hard to ignore him because you know he's absolutely nailed, especially after his rest, right? Rashford's numbers are right down. 2 shots in the box, 1 chance created is pretty poor. I know he scored against Liverpool in the FA Cup, really good finish. He also set up Mason Greenwood, but I think both chances, especially the first one, it's not often you knock it. Like it was a great ball, right? Great assist, but it's not often you get to do that, especially against Liverpool. So I'll be concerned about captaining Rashford. Plus, we know he came off with a bit of an injury. He's had a scan. We'll find out in the press conference what the deal is with that. I probably wouldn't captain him. I think his numbers are declining a little bit. And I think one of the problems is, which comes down to captaining any other player that's not Fernandes, is how will Man United set up? They can play Cavani up front, Rashford on the right, Martial on the left. They could play Rashford on the left, Martial out front, leave Cavani out, or whatever it might be. I think there's a chance that Rashford doesn't play in this game because Martial can play left, Greenwood can play right, and Cavani through the middle, and there's no need to kind of risk Rashford at all. I think Cavani's looked quite good. 7 shots in the box, 2.35 expected goal volume is really quite high over the last 4 matches. So if he plays, he could be a good option. But obviously he is a bit of a punt because not many people own him. I think Martial will probably get a start in this one, whether up front or on the left, because he did get rested in the FA Cup. His numbers are quite good, always getting shots in the box. So I do like him as an outside shot. Bruno Fernandes is obviously the one. There's not really too much to dislike about captaining this week. Sheffield United have been quite poor this season. Yes, they've improved, but they have played some poor attacking teams, and Man United will give them a game. And Fernandes, like I said, he will be the most captain player, and he probably is the most obvious pick this week. So this match, I'm telling you, right, West Brom versus Man City, we are missing out on a prime captain option, right? Even when I was talking in the Patreon Slack before De Bruyne got injured, there was already a few people looking at Bruno Fernandes, and I was like, I'm definitely on De Bruyne. There's nothing kind of stopping that. West Brom are awful. Forget the big Sam effect. It ain't there. I know they drew 1-1 with Liverpool. That was an anomaly, right? They have not done well since then. In fact, in the last 6 games, they have conceded 17 goals. Expected goals conceded for the season, 1.98. That is awful, right? Last season, before the kind of lockdown, when Aston Villa came back and suddenly were really good defensively, that's the kind of numbers they were conceding, and they were conceding a lot of goals. That's really bad. And it hasn't got any better over the last 6, the last 4. They have played some pretty good teams over that time. So West Ham, Wolves, Arsenal, Leeds, Liverpool, Villa. So Villa very attacking, Liverpool very attacking. Leeds, obviously, we know they are. They put 5 goals past them alone. But the West Brom the West Brom defence is really poor. Now, I've only put attackers on here, and I've not put all the City players on. They could be Jesus, they could be Mahrez. Some people are going to look at defender captaincies, which we'll talk about in a second. I think a brave FPL manager, and I'm not saying you should do it, and I probably will not do it, right? I'm not kind of brave enough to make this kind of cool. But a brave FPL manager will plump, I should say, on a Man City attacker or even a Man City defender, because West Brom are just that bad. Right, and I just don't see how it's going to get any better against Man City. The only kind of saving grace, I suppose, is Kevin De Bruyne is not fit and not going to be playing. We know he's ruled out. He's part of the creative process with Man City, right? Everything goes through him. He always creates the most chances. And if you look at the numbers here, Gundogan's playing quite well. Only 6 chances created. Sterling only 4. Bernardo Silva only 5. Although a lot of people are expecting Bernardo Silva to move to the number 10 position. Maybe that will help him out in terms of creating chances. Foden seems to be the most creative. Last 4 matches, he's created 10 chances, and he's had 10 shots in the box, which beats everyone apart from Gundogan. So if you were someone that likes a punt, right, and you want to take a punt on Foden getting started, then I think he is probably one of the best captain options this week, because when he plays, he's always creative. He always gets plenty of chances in front of goal as well. And he's playing West Brom. And you look at the defensive numbers, they are absolutely awful. I cannot kind of state how bad they are, right? They're always conceding chances left, right and centre. It's just how much emphasis do you put on De Bruyne being out. I think for tougher matches, he'll be a massive miss, because I think he does step up in the bigger games. In these smaller matches is probably a bit harsh, but you know what I mean. Against teams like West Brom, I don't think he's going to make a huge amount of difference. It is probably the one thing that would put me off, and obviously minutes is a problem, because even when Foden's done well before in the past, it doesn't mean he necessarily starts the next game, right? So even though he was super good in his last game, Pep was building him up again, talking about him, saying he's not Kevin De Bruyne, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to be Phil Foden. And looking at that, he is one of their most creative players. He should be starting, but there's no guarantee. If you wanted to take a punt, though, he's the one. The safer pick right now probably looks like Gundogan. Sterling has played less minutes in his last 4 matches, but it's not a considerable amount. If you look at those numbers, right, it points to Gundogan over Sterling. Now, I'm not saying that Sterling can't go and do better, right? We've seen in previous seasons his underlying numbers have been a lot better, and there's nothing to say he can't get back to that form. But without De Bruyne, I just worry about whether he can do that. And with Sterling, usually when you want to go for him as a captain option, you want to see a little bit from him before, and we're just not seeing it in the last few matches. He just doesn't look on it. He's not getting enough chances in front of goal, and sometimes you just can't ignore the numbers. And in the back of my head, I'm saying it's Gundogan. There's no way I should be saying he's a better captain, but he is getting more shots in the box. I don't see why that would massively change without De Bruyne. Like, there's talk about him having to play deeper, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. He's already starting, near whoever plays there, Rodri or Fernandinho, and obviously he's playing as a number 8, so he can get further forward. Like, he's an attacking 8. He's not sitting back. And I think if you wanted to go for a kind of safer bet for Man City, Gundogan's probably the one, but Foden just looks really good. And if you are taking a punt this week, bringing in Foden and captain him, or even bringing in Sterling and captain him, could be massive, because West Brom, as bad as Sheffield United are, they are not at West Brom's level, and I just don't see how they don't concede another 2, 3, 4 goals against Man City this week. So let's look at some of the other matches. Obviously, most people are going to be putting their captaincy on Man City and Man United players, but obviously we should talk about the rest. These are more kind of differential punts, options, whatever you want to call it. I think Leeds versus Newcastle have got every making of another big scoring game. The reverse fixture was 5-2 to Leeds. Now, they did score a lot of those goals on the counter towards the end, but I just think Leeds have been so good attacking-wise. I wouldn't let that Brighton game put me off too much. And Newcastle are just so bad, a bit like West Brom right now. They are a good team to target. So someone like Bamford, a really outside punt on someone like Rafinha could be a nice option in that game. I don't really see anything from Newcastle in the last few weeks to tell me that they're going to suddenly make a game of this. Maybe something will click at some point, but I don't think it's going to be with Steve Bruce the way he's going about things right now. Burnley versus Villa is a game where I'm finding it pretty difficult to call, because Burnley have at times this season conceded a good few goals, and Villa have been one of the better attacking sides. And since they've been back from COVID, they have looked really good, both against Man City and then obviously against Newcastle as well. But Nick Pope's looking really good right now. Me and Tarkowski have got that partnership back and are not conceding a huge amount of goals. If I had Nick Pope, for example, I'd be more than happy to play him this week. So I don't think I would go for like an outside punt on Watkins or Grealish. I'd probably just ignore that. Chelsea versus Wolves is a really interesting one, because Wolves are neither playing that well from an attacking perspective and definitely not from a defensive perspective. I think it's got to the point with Timo Werner now where it's kind of you throw enough mud and you just hope it sticks. So you recommend as an option plenty of times. Then finally at one point he will get his goals. I think once they get a new manager in, I think it's Tuchel that's coming in, and I know I've probably not got that pronunciation right. I will work on that, especially if he definitely becomes the manager. That's not confirmed yet at the time recording this, but there's already been talk about how he want the German players in there, like Timo Werner, and he might see it as a bounce back. I think Timo Werner has been so unlucky this year. The amount of chances he's had, he's just not a bad finisher, I don't think. I think he's just on the most unluckiest kind of cold streaks. Or what's the opposite of a hot streak? A cold streak? I guess so. You know what I'm trying to say. So I do think there's a chance Chelsea will get some goals in this one. But as always, are they going to come from Pulisic? Are they going to come from Werner, Ziyech, etc.? I could see them scoring 2 or 3 here. There will be some players that will be massively unhappy with Lampard going, but that's just the way of life at Chelsea, right? They do sack managers fairly regularly. So I guess the players should really be used to it and expect it to happen. So I quite like that fixture because Wolves just haven't been great recently. But you're taking a massive leap of faith to even probably own Chelsea players right now, let alone captain them in that one. Outside of that, I think Everton and Leicester could be quite tight, even without Jamie Vardy. I think Leicester will still be decent defensively, obviously. And then Spurs versus Liverpool, again, I don't really know how to call that. I think the problem with Spurs is they go 1-0 up and they're just going to try and ride out that victory. And Liverpool, look, I'm not writing off Liverpool players at all. I'm definitely keeping Salah. I would have done it even if he blanked against Man United in the FA Cup. But it's not a good time to be captaining them against Spurs. Like, Man United and Man City fixtures are just too good to ignore, I think. So going for someone in Spurs versus Liverpool is a bit of a leap of faith. I think both defences can be got at, but if this was like 1-1, 2-1 again, something like that, I don't think anyone will be shocked. No one's getting 3-4 goals in this one, I don't think. So I don't think there's a huge amount of fixtures with kind of guaranteed punts, but I think Leeds in particular, maybe Chelsea, are the two to probably look at outside of kind of Man United and Man City. There we go. That is my thoughts on captaincy for Game Week 20. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. I'll be back later on today for a deadline stream at 3:30, counting us down to Game Week 20, getting those transfers locked in, captaincy options, and stuff like that. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell when you subscribe so you know when all the videos are going up and when all the live streams are in fact live. If you want to check out Patreon as well, support me and the channel a little bit further, as well as get some perks and benefits. I've just put up a Q&A today for those of you on the kind of middle and top tiers on Patreon as well. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. There is a link in the description below, and everyone that signs up goes up on the Legends wall as well. So big thank you to everyone that has already supported me and the channel even further by signing up to Patreon. And one quick last shout out to Sean D, who has signed up since the last video as well. So welcome aboard, and thank you for joining us all on Patreon. Well over 200 people there now. So if you want to join, link in the description below. Please do hit the like button on the video, hit subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll catch you later on for a deadline stream. Otherwise, good luck in Game Week 20.